Welcome back, my name is Mark, this is Supersonic Sax. If it's your first time here, this channel is all about learning to play the saxophone correctly from a mechanical perspective, so that you're never fighting with the saxophone when you play music. Today we're looking at a commonly misunderstood aspect of saxophone playing, namely the high register. Most often called the Altissimo register today, which is Italian for very high, Sigurd Rascher preferred the term top tones. It is said he thought the word altissimo gave the impression that the high range was something extra, and not a natural extension of the instrument. The top tones are the notes of the scale beyond the palm keys, although you could consider top E and F to be the lower part of this range. Rascher reminded his contemporaries that the saxophone was originally intended to be a serious orchestral instrument, useful for both ensemble and solo playing, which was capable of producing a 4-octave range. The higher-pitched saxophones, like the soprano, also have the upper register. And although I've put in relatively little practice time with the soprano, you can still hear that the notes are there to be developed if you so choose. They are produced by sounding the higher overtones of the fundamental fingerings. And what I'm calling the fundamentals are low B flat to the palm keys, all without the octave key. Two of the most common questions about this topic are, why is this so hard? It's not working. I think I have the wrong fingering. Which one should I use? To the first question, the top tones are not actually any more difficult than the lower notes. They're just unfamiliar. Why is that the case? Because as saxophonists, many of us do not learn to work with the acoustics of our instrument until a much later stage in our study. If you study a brass instrument, because of the way it works, you have to learn how to move around the harmonics of each fingering out of necessity, because that's how you get a chromatic scale with only 3 valves. Now compare that with the saxophone. When we all start, we get a few fingerings to learn the basics of playing, and different notes become associated with various fingerings. For example, I can't put these 2 fingers on my left thumb without immediately thinking A. As we extend our range, the entire fingerboard is eventually learned. By the time we reach the high register, it makes sense that the first question we ask is, which fingering do I use? What many of us don't realize is that the basic fingerings work because we're using the fundamentals and first overtones to play a 2.5 octave chromatic scale. Which leads us to the second question. Use the fingering that best produces the appropriate harmonic to play that note. Learning the upper register often goes hand in hand with the study of voicing, which is the sensation you feel with your tongue and vocal tract as you're playing each note. And since every note on the saxophone has a slightly different tongue position, this has to be discovered experimentally by each player. And one way to do this is with the overtone series. For more information on the topic of voicing and some exercises to get you started, check out this video here. As you're learning to play each note and overtone, pay particular attention to what's going on at the back of your tongue. With whatever exercise you're doing, always make sure you're supplying enough wind power, because whatever role voicing or the reed or the embouchure is playing, it's the air that makes everything possible. If there is a secret to playing the higher notes on the saxophone, it's this. You have to learn to increase and control the speed of the airstream. And the way you do that is by strengthening the muscles responsible for blowing air into the horn. This is one of the many objectives of practicing long tones. But there are also ways to strengthen these muscles without even using your instrument, as I discussed in this video on how to blow into a saxophone. If you haven't already, check that out because you may learn some things about how we supply air forcefully to the instrument that may surprise you. We're often told to breathe from the diaphragm, which is a very effective visualization for efficiently filling your lungs with air. But the diaphragm is not the muscle that pushes air out of your lungs. That is primarily done by the internal intercostals, which contract your rib cage and as a result, squeeze the air out of your lungs, as well as some other muscles in the abdominal region. So by exercising these muscles, it's possible to supply a much stronger airstream to the instrument. One very effective way of doing this is with something you might call a calisthenic long tone. Whenever you're playing anything, always make sure to stand up straight with your shoulders back and chest up, because this forces you into the ideal position to be able to use the blowing muscles most effectively. So let's take a descending major arpeggio, and on the last note, hold it until you squeeze all the air out of your lungs. As you're about to run out of air, try to crescendo, so that you're really engaging the blowing muscles. Even after the sound stops, keep squeezing a little longer so you really feel the burn. After a couple of these, you'll start to actually feel physically tired, which is good because that means you're exercising them correctly. Do this for a few minutes every day and it will pay dividends in the long run, because a strong airstream not only makes the top tones much easier to play, but helps everything on the instrument to respond more efficiently. Let's finish on this very important point. Since we all share the same basic anatomy, which can be further developed, everybody can learn to play in the saxophone's high register if they just figure out how to do it right. Claude Gordon, the brass teacher, whose ideas regarding breathing and practice I've found to be both inspirational and effective for the saxophone, said in the past, "If you're playing correctly, the high notes are inevitable." And in my own experience, that certainly seems to be true. There's a book that I recommend every saxophonist get a copy of, and that's Sigurd Rascher's Top Tones for the Saxophone. This is the foundational text for the study of the saxophone's high register. And the next few videos are going to be about how to work through this at times esoteric book so you can get the most out of it in your practice. If you're interested in going further, there's a new method book available that takes all of this information and organizes it in a structured step-by-step manner so that anybody can learn to play the full range of the saxophone easily. Or take a look at the free mini ebook available in the link below. That's all for now. Keep doing those breathing calisthenics and I'll see you next time.